digital tools to grow your equestrian business. And we're going to be covering a fairly quick agenda to get through everything. But basically the digital tools that a lot of our clients and customers are coming after and asking about, especially now with COVID. When we've had the switch over to digital technology, everyone's kind of figuring out what are the best practices and what's realistic for the equestrian industry to go through. So the idea is not to reinvent the wheel, but just to give the basic primer of, if you're going to be concentrating on something, what are the core competencies you need to have so that you're growing your revenue in 2021, not frustrated, not beating your head against the wall, not losing money, and being able to get the word out, get the revenue, get the clients, and get the sales that you need to have to sustain your business. So we'll talk a little bit about the digital tools that allow you to reach those customers, particularly search engine optimization and social media, but in a way that is accessible for the common horse person. We're going to talk a little bit about the common email tools that horse people tend not to be aware of, but really can save you hours upon hours upon hours each week. We're going to talk a little bit about digital payment tools. I have never seen so many people run to credit card options that I saw during COVID. So if there's one thing that's going to push check payment out the door, it's going to be COVID. So we'll talk a little bit about what are the easier digital payment tools that you can transfer your business over to scale up your revenue. And when that's successful, what that means for you, how you're going to absorb that new revenue and that new business. Because sometimes people have a vision of, I want to grow my revenue, but I don't know quite where to put all these new riders and new clients and new people. And we'll talk a little bit about the legal aspects and the tools that are going to help you with the legal issues of growing the business. Every horse person, no matter who they are, if they go to another horse venue, they've got to sign a liability release. So with a lot of paper, as the more and more that scales up, especially for horse shows and stuff, that really takes a hit onto your profit and onto your staff time. So we'll talk a lot about the tools that we've got for e-signatures and touchless entries. And then we'll bring it all together and wrap it up and have some Q&A. So as you have questions, go ahead and text them either to the group or to Natasha Springers-Levine. You can text in Zoom by scrolling down lower right. You'll see a little chat button. Just go in, select the person you want to chat them to, send them over to Natasha. We'll compile them at the end and go through everybody's questions and answers. Okay, so Natasha's going to kick it off to talk a little bit about the revenue scaling, but basically the key takeaway that you're going to hear time and time again on this presentation is that in order to scale your revenue in 2021 and get more money than you got in 2020 for your equestrian business, you're going to need to adopt some new techniques. And so you got to figure out ways that digital tools can easily help you cross that bridge and capture the money that you need to capture without drama, without stress, without the need for Tums at the end of the night because you're dealing with people or boarders or clients that are stressing you out. So Natasha, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
It is key to unmute oneself when one would like to speak on a webinar. Thank you everyone for joining us. Tara, thank you for that great introduction. We are going to chat tonight a little bit about ways that you can use digital tools to increase your brand awareness, and then how to handle that brand awareness, right? What are you going to do when your sales increase? How will you accept money from people? And how will you thank, the people who've helped you get there, right? Your sponsors, et cetera, et cetera. So Tara, you can move us to the next slide. And we're going to start where most experiences online start. So we're going to talk a little bit tonight about search engine optimization. You can see here 93% of online experiences begin with a search engine. So that means that people are going online and they're searching horse shows near me, riding lessons near me, dressage clinics near me, those types of things. You need to make sure that your business answers that question in a Google search, right? So a tool like Strider ideally helps with that. The more that you have your activities on Strider, the more you're going to come up in a Google search. Again, this is the way that we designed our platform, so we're just sharing that information with you. There are some other great ways to bump up your SEO, including your website's content. You can use your blog or even just the pages, the static pages on your website to increase that web presence as well. Another way that you want to inflate your web presence, give yourself a few more points, as it were, towards better SEO, is to use Facebook and Instagram. If somebody searches for the name of your farm's business page is going to come up. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the coming slides. And Tara, you can navigate us to the next one. So in terms of digital marketing, right, which has really replaced print marketing for the most part. I think it used to be the case in the horse industry, especially, that if you wanted to get the word out about your business, you advertised in the local paper, you advertised in the local magazines, the horse show circuit magazines, etc. And this is not to say print media is dead. I am a firm believer in newspaper, magazines, etc. But digital marketing has moved forward quite a bit. And in order to stay relevant, you need to make sure that your business has that web presence that I was just talking about. So digital marketing is a really key way to remind people that your business is there, right? And also attract new customers to your business. You want to have a couple of best practices in place. One of them is that you should create business pages on social media. That is going to help you create a balance between, acting professional and then posting pictures of having drinks with your friends, right? That's not exactly the kind of thing that your clients might want to see. It's great. It humanizes you. I'm glad you're doing it. Enjoy, but not exactly the prime way to attract a new client base, right? So some ways that you can also really scale your business using these digital tools is to use schedulers. Have a little bit of a plan of what you want to say on your social media channels, across your channels, and schedule those posts in advance. We'll go through a couple of tools that I highly recommend, that we highly recommend. Another key item is that you want to give people a path to follow, right? So we started with the very simple Google search. Well, then what happens when they find your business? Think about a horse going through a jump chute, right? They don't really have another option but to go through the obstacles, the gymnastics, and get through to the other side. You kind of want your customers to walk through your sales experience, becoming a new customer with you, in that same way. So you want them to feel that they don't have to ask any questions about, hey, where should I go to find the information, as they explore and find out more about your business. Again, with digital marketing, you have the added bonus of an entire platform that you control the messaging on. So that means that you control the messaging across your website, across your social media channels, right? So you get to highlight who and what you want to highlight. Put your best foot forward, highlight your partners, highlight your sponsors, and most importantly, be really, really transparent and clear about what you offer. Again, right? That's going to help people become your customers. If they don't have to walk away with 15 questions after they see your website, you've done a good job, right? You want them to know what you offer and how much it's going to cost them, because people feel uncomfortable asking those questions. And if your website can answer those questions for you, you're more likely to grow your customer base quickly. We can move on to the next one. Perfect. So our top social media tools that we recommend, two of them are scheduling based and one of them is graphics based. So horse people are busy, right? If you've got an equine business, chances are you also have a horse and you want to make sure that your horse time is your horse time. So use scheduling tools. Facebook Business Suite actually just expanded their options. So you used to only be able to schedule Facebook posts, but Facebook acquired Instagram, and then they built this fantastic and very comprehensive tool so that now you can schedule posts and peruse your insights, which are going to give you a little hint as to how your posts are performing in Facebook Business Suite. It's free and they do not charge you to use it, right? Like no strings attached ever. It's ideal. They help you out a little bit with the formatting. It's really great. You can tag other accounts through it. Can't recommend it enough. Hootsuite is another one. They start with a unpaid basic version. And then there are some paid options there. So it's another post scheduling app or tool. There is an app for your phone for that. So it's handy. We've used it in the past, but for Strider now we've switched to option one here, which is the Facebook Business Suite. Another really, really fantastic tool that you might not know about is Canva. So many of us, as we start to engage in marketing practices, some of us run before we even get there and we say, nope, I don't know anything about marketing. I don't know anything about graphics. I can't do it. I don't want to do it. It's too challenging. Canva basically holds your hand and takes you on a guided tour of how to make really, really nice looking images. Not only that, you can upload whatever you want. So if you want to throw your logo on stuff, you can add it into Canva. Many of their tools are free. There are some great perks of their paid options, but you can get away with quite a bit on Canva for free. And I really, really can't recommend it enough. Actually, I will say that we used Canva to create this slideshow presentation because they do everything from social media to basic graphics and then presentations and flyers. So they're really, really comprehensive. It's a great tool. So next, we'll talk a little bit about email marketing. So in the horse world, we have seen quite a bit of attempted text marketing, I'll call it, right? People will text a bunch of other people and say, hey, I've got so-and-so coming for a 2-day clinic. Do you want a lesson? It's not going to work in the long term, right? You want to really harness the power of email marketing. There are a couple of key things that give you a far and away bonus with email marketing, including that you can easily keep your contact list, which you will want to have. You'll want to keep it in an Excel spreadsheet. You'll want to track your contact list, right? And that way you can measure your own growth too. It's a really interesting metric for growth. The other thing email that's great is that it's both personal and it's engaging, right? So one key that you see a lot is that, people feel that they're being sold to. With email marketing, you can really tailor that message to your clients or your potential clients' wants, hopes, and dreams, right? If you know that your client base is the horse show weekend warrior, let them know about how your group did at the latest horse show that you went to. That's a great newsletter option, right? Oh, and by the way, we have lessons available, so come train with us. Fantastic use of email marketing, right? Another thing about email marketing is that it's really, really easy to keep people on that jump shoot path that I mentioned. So you can keep people moving clearly through your sales funnel and becoming customers, re-engaging with what you're offering, right? So if you email out a link to, let's say, a horse show, we actually see on Strider that there is a 40% jump in page activity. So if you email out a link, 40% more people are going to enter your activity. Email also is accessible for a wide range of people, right? And you can easily keep business records with email because you've got a nice paper trail that's clean, that's easy to manage. We can move on to the next one. Perfect. So a couple of things that I really should mention here, and we'll call it the fine print. With email, you want to be aware of a couple of things. You want to really ensure that you protect your customer privacy and do not pass around your email list. When somebody opts in to receive an email from you, they are opting in to receive an email from you, not your cousin down the street, right? Because he owns a tractor business and your clients might need their tractor service. That's not how it works. There is a law called the Can-Spam Act, and you actually can face an up to $40,000 fine per misused email. So if you just kind of slide that email along, without a bridge email, without an appropriate way of saying, hey, we know you from here, and that's why we're emailing you today, you can face that fine. So if somebody signs up to ride at a horse show with you, they are opting in to hear about more of your horse shows. You've got to have a little bit of dialogue in your opt-in about whether or not you are going to pass those emails along to your show sponsors, right? And we just always encourage, if show sponsorship does include emails or contact list, be sure to have that bridge email. Hey, you attended a horse show at Blue Ridge Farm. We sponsored that horse show. We sponsored the high score prize, and we're sending you this special offer today. That would be appropriate. If you are emailing a large group of people, make sure that you BCC your clients, right? So what that means is a blind carbon copy. That means that I see that you emailed me and a bunch of other people, but I don't know specifically who those people are. That's really, really important too for protecting privacy. Regardless of what email program you are using, or if you are just emailing people from, Gmail or Outlook or whatever, you want to make sure that you have an unsubscribe option. So if you're using MailChimp or Constant Contact, those are really, really easy to create links in. If you are just sending emails to a group from your Gmail account, you want to make sure that you have a disclaimer footnote that directs people to an unsubscribe option. So it can say something like, respond to this email with unsubscribe if you do not wish to hear from me anymore, or another polite invitation like that. One big rule that we like to encourage everybody to follow is to separate your personal email and your business email. So you want to make sure it just looks a little bit cleaner, a little more professional, but it also will save you a ton of time, right? You can set your business hours and then be like, you know what? I'm not checking my business email after 6 p.m. I'm just going to check my personal email. And that way your clients can't really harass you, right? And your communications stay a little bit more streamlined. Another thing that you can do is use email rules to filter your emails automatically. So if you get, a ton of shopping emails every day, or if you get emails from potential boarding clients, you can have those automatically go into different filters in your inbox. You can usually Google whatever email program you use and how to set up filters, and there are great step-by-step tutorials for those. So a couple of email programs that we usually recommend are MailChimp and Constant Contact. So those are great because you've got awesome drag and drop features. You can fully customize the layout. You can use their free options for quite some time. I think, MailChimp, you can use it for free without scheduling, and then you have to pay $9.99 a month. But, you can figure out how that works with your budget and everything. We definitely recommend Gmail as a great email program. You can have a separate business account for free. They also have a ton of great organizational tools like Google Drive and all that stuff that you are then entitled to use with your Gmail account. So just a couple of perks there. Gmail is also quite clean and professional, and it's very user-friendly. They've spent a lot of time on their design, which is nice when you're trying to at a glance sort through things. MailChimp and Constant Contact additionally enable you to email a bunch of people at once, right? So you can import that handy dandy contact list that I discussed earlier into a program like MailChimp or Constant Contact, and then email your list when you have an exciting announcement about your business or want to send them news updates. All right, and with that, I will pass it over to Tara to discuss what you will do to accept payments now that you've grown your business with such gusto.
Thank you, Natasha. So one of the things, Natasha, the theme that you're going to be hearing through both what I say and Natasha says is saving the time so that you have the time to spend on other areas of your business. One of the messages we heard time and time again during COVID was that the amount of labor it was taking to digitally do normal business transactions had scaled up 4 or 5 times what people really expected it to take. Just processing a check payment all of a sudden became a very labor intensive activity. So the idea is if you're looking to scale up your business, you've got to figure out where the inefficiencies are, where you're leaving revenue on the table, and then what you can do to automate that revenue and take that time and spend it on more profitable activities so that you're not spending 15 minutes in your driveway processing a piece of paper, but you're spending that 15 minutes maybe teaching a lesson or acquiring a new boarder or a new client that's going to give you recurring revenue. The whole point of this is that you're running a business. You're not running something that's supposed to be losing money. So you need to have a way to collect that revenue. So with the time saving that you set up with your SEO, getting the message out and doing that in a way that is fairly straightforward, scheduled, predictable, you're not spending your mental time trying to figure out how to get the word out. You're spending your mental time on what you're good at. And then you're figuring out, how do I start taking the money in a way that doesn't cost me time? Because when you start taking checks, especially now, every check you're looking at 5-15 minutes to take that check, to pull it out of your breeches, make sure it didn't go into the laundry, figure out if you can iron it after it went through the laundry, get it over to the bank, mobile deposit, rescan it if it didn't scan properly, call the person if it bounces. A lot of people have problems with bounce checks, especially when people trailer in for schooling. So the digital payment tools is a way to mitigate all that drama and give you a technique that is scalable so that you can go from, if you have 2 clients, you can have 20 clients. If you have 20 clients or 20 students, you can have 200 students, and you can track it and absorb that new revenue. One of the interesting areas I've always seen at the horse farm is when you have a situation where someone says, I'd love to have 20 more people come into my facility. So we are going to mute real quick. I think we've got somebody off mute. And so what we have sometimes is we ask them, well, where are you going to put those trailers? And they look at you with a blank expression because they know the vision of trying to get more digital money, but they don't know what they're going to do once they hit that success. So the digital payment tools we're going to talk about, they've got to be scalable. They've got to go from where you're at today with your business to 10 times the amount of business you have today. You've got to be able to track the money that's coming in. It can't be a bunch of paper checks that are going through the wash that you're not sure if you got paid for that lesson or you didn't get paid. And it takes you 25 minutes to figure out if you got paid and you only taught for 45 minutes. You've lost money teaching that lesson because the amount of time it took you to capture that revenue was so long, you didn't make enough money. Your time is worth something. And you want it to be something accessible. You don't want it to be something that is so difficult for you to figure out what's going on and tracking it that it's problematic. The one point I would emphasize time and again is do not trade convenience for IRS drama. The amount of horse businesses that get audited by the IRS because they are sole proprietorships dealing in cash is much higher than other industries. And if you know anyone who's gone through an IRS audit, it is not a pleasant experience. So you have to make sure that your financial accounting for your business, especially as you start scaling it up, is easily trackable and easily scalable. Because if you start with something, you're like, oh, well, this is convenient for now. If it's not something that's going to stay with you when you're making 10 times the amount of revenue, it is not the right solution for you. So you want to be thinking about auto collecting the money as much as possible. Anytime you're processing a check, you're delaying that revenue capture, which means you're going to have problems making payroll. So if your board is due on the first of the month, you want to think about a way to auto collect that money on the first of the month, because we all know that boarders sometimes will mail it, sometimes they'll drop it off into the shoebox, sometimes they'll forget to drop it off in the shoebox, and by the time you get the check, deposit the check, and the check clears, you have to pay the hay guy and you don't have enough money in your business checking account to pay the hay guy. So think about ways with these digital payment tools of what you can add to your business to auto collect as much as possible so that your processing time isn't slowing down your revenue capture. Then you want to be thinking, if you haven't already come up with a business plan, what are you trying to process each month digitally? What is your target sum? because if you're not quite sure what you need to be processing to make your business profitable and grow, you have no way of measuring success. So again, trackable, scalable, and accessible. And then I mentioned before, but have a plan for when that revenue scaling works. Over the last 8 months, we've seen a lot of equestrian businesses figure out really innovative ways to reach their customers. Some of them have opened up their indoor arenas and they rent it out. Some of them have rented out cross-country courses. Some of them have done virtual lessons. Some of them have done virtual courses, virtual professional development webinars that they charge for. This one obviously is free. But when you have these great ideas and there's success, you have to have a plan for how you're going to absorb that success, both with the payment and with the infrastructure. So if you've opened up your cross-country field for outdoor riders, and the next thing you know, you have 20 to 30 riders trailering in every week, and you don't have a system to take their payment, take their waivers, and take their scheduling, you can't absorb that revenue success. So the digital payment tools we're going to talk about are ways that you can absorb all that and keep your life sane. Okay. So I said don't trade convenience for IRS drama. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Venmo. Venmo is meant for sharing Uber rides with your friends. Venmo is meant for taking somebody's margarita bill and making sure everyone pays their fair share. It is not meant to scale your horse business. It is not meant for very accurate business record keeping. It's informal. So a lot of people ran to Venmo during COVID because it was a quick way they could get money. And that's true. It is a quick way you can get money. It is not a sustainable way of scaling your equestrian business. It is entirely not designed for large volume equestrian businesses. So it's not meant to invoice. It's convenient for one-time services, but if you're using Venmo, take a hard look at it and figure out what are your needs of your business and what the other solutions are out there. Because from a long-term basis, if you're using Venmo right now, you're not going to get much more than what you're getting right now. You'll get a little bit, but you're certainly not going to scale it to what you wanted to see now that you've started to adopt digital technologies. The other two that are out there, there's actually three. So there's Stripe, PayPal, and Intuit QuickBooks. We don't talk about Intuit QuickBooks that much on this particular webinar because it tends to be a little bit more technology advanced than most of our clients are comfortable with. So it's out there, it's a great resource, it's a paid resource, but if you're not already on QuickBooks, it can be a little difficult to learn. The two that we tend to see the most are Stripe and PayPal. So Stripe is great for record keeping, it's scalable. It's a charge card processor like anything else. It's not as good for one-time services. It's a little harder for that sort of stuff. There are some entities out there that use it for online entries. When you hire a developer and you say, hey, I want to process online entries, they tend to push you towards PayPal for a variety of different reasons. So some people have Stripe because PayPal does not allow multiple accounts under the same nonprofit, whereas Stripe will. But it's used a lot more rarely. What I like about Stripe and what a lot of our clients like about Stripe is that it's really good for subscriptions. So if you want to auto collect board payment each month, or if you have a horse syndicate that you want to auto collect the payments for, it's fairly straightforward to set up the subscriptions in Stripe and collect that money through Stripe. In comparison, to set up a similar functionality in PayPal is a lot harder. So on a scale of 1 to 10, Stripe's probably a 4 for subscriptions. PayPal's probably an 8. You really need a developer. You need another product or two of theirs. There's a monthly fee for it. It's just a little bit more cumbersome to do those subscriptions with PayPal. On both of them, you're going to have merchant fees. With Stripe, to process just straightforward stuff, it's mostly free. Especially for the subscriptions. PayPal, you got to pay for the subscriptions. And as I said, there's going to be an integration cost. Most of you aren't going to know how to do the integration for PayPal subscriptions on your website. So you're going to be paying for that and plus the product each month. Where PayPal is great is capturing the revenue. It is the most frequently used product in the horse industry. Almost every equestrian facility has a PayPal account. All the nonprofits have PayPal accounts. All the associations have PayPal accounts. So you're going to see a lot of PayPal out there. You're going to hear a lot of stories about PayPal, but you'll see a lot of it. What we did was we took the pros of PayPal and the pros of Stripe and merged them together. So we partnered with PayPal, but we said there's some certain peculiarities for the horse industry that we need to have. They need to be able to keep the records. They need to be scalable. They want to be able to access that invoicing. So when we set up Strider Pay, the technology that's on our platform, because you have a PayPal account to use it, you automatically have access to your invoicing. Then we knew that they needed an easier way to do the one-time services like lessons and trailing and gas. So we set that up through the platform through our e-shops. Most of you have seen the online entries. We partner with PayPal to process the online entries, but we did it in a way that the merchant is not charged that 2.9%. So we did it in a way that everything's legal, everything is reported to the IRS properly, everything is tracked, that the business doesn't lose that 3% processing fee effectively, and it's effectively free to the merchant or the venue to use. If the venue wants to sell personal products and services like lessons, there's a minor fee each month for the e-shop, but it's a really easy way to capture the revenue with a secure, trusted entity of PayPal and scale it up. So whether you're selling, 4 lesson packs or you're selling 600 entries to a horse show, you can scale it up. You can't do that as easily with Venmo. It's just not, there's not a system out there that takes the record keeping and the money, puts them all into one, and you know which rider has paid you for which. You'll wind up spending a lot more time than money that you saved if you start going that direction. So let's talk a little bit about Strider Pay. As I mentioned, it partners with standard PayPal. So you're using that backbone of PayPal. The platform is set up for date-based payments. If you are a venue that is looking to increase your horse shows, activities, you're looking to get more money this year than you did during COVID for clinics, for master classes. If you're having schooling occur, we've also seen a lot of memberships get sold through it for GMOs and associations. All of those payments can process through the platform and enables those transactions without a merchant fee. If you have physical products or services, or you're selling online courses, that's all over in the e-shop. But again, if you're trying to sell more sale horses in 2021, if you're trying to do more ad hoc training, or you're trying to build your borders for a little bit more services than you did in 2020, you want to be able to invoice them. And that's what PayPal through Strider Pay is going to allow you to do. So you've got somebody out of the country and you need to collect their sale horse deposit. You really don't want to be dealing with wire transfers, FedExing, the payment, all that sort of stuff. You don't want to deal with stuff that's labor intensive. You send them an invoice, they pay the invoice, you have the deposit on the sale horse. They can even pay for the horse that way if they wanted to do it. It's all set up so that the money goes directly into your bank account at the end of the night. There's directions online, whether you're using PayPal or Strider Pay's variant of PayPal, it's the same technique. But you want to capture that revenue as quickly as possible. And you want to use those digital tools to save your time and say, I want to wake up on the 2nd of each month and know that all of my boarders have paid their board and it is in my checking account. And I have access to that money immediately to run my business. You want to make sure that the lessons are paid at the time that you teach the lesson, not 3 weeks later. So again, capture that money, put it in so that you can run your business, not running around trying to deposit checks and figure out whether or not somebody's paid you. Okay, so we talked a little bit about the record keeping aspect, and that's going to lead us into a little bit of the legal paperwork and the digital tools for the legal paperwork. We looked at a lot of considerations of tools that basically enabled you to have the record keeping, even more important right now with COVID, but also options that your barn staff can support, because it doesn't make sense to take a digital tool that only the barn owner can access, at the end of the day. If you have paper waivers and you're out of town for a weekend and you're at a horse show for 2 weeks and somebody shows up at your facility and your working students basically say, I don't know where the waivers are, you're not going to have a signed waiver on file. The person falls off, you're not protected. Your business is not, your insurance policy isn't going to cover it. But at the same time, there's practical time and money considerations. You can't necessarily sign up for DocuSign if it's going to cost you $400 a month to process the volume of signatures that you need to process because you're having horse shows. So we looked at a couple of those different things and we said to ourselves, One of the big time sucks in equestrian businesses are the waivers. You're out on the driveway, you've got somebody who's just trailered in, you need them to sign a waiver. Next thing you know, it's 15 minutes on the driveway, chatting with them, handing them the piece of paper, them asking where they can put their horse, where they can wash off, this, that, and the other. You could be doing something else for those 15 minutes, and those 15 minutes add up. So I said it, I think at the beginning, but I'll say it again. The point of these digital tools is at a minimum to save you an hour a day. Why do we care about an hour a day? Because if you save an hour a day every day, because you're not doing labor-intensive paper-based activities, you wind up with 2.5 months more time each year. That's serious time saving. You could be in Bora Bora having a grand old time for those 2.5 months, not sitting around putting paper waivers in a binder. So, use your time wisely. If you've got an extra 15 minutes, use it on what you want to use it on. So the best practices for how you're doing paperwork, and some of you have heard this before, is you've got to start thinking about ways to collect your signatures digitally, not manually. You got to move the paper back into the last decade. So you need a solution, whether it's through Google or through a commercial capability that we'll talk about, where you can collect those signatures from somebody's cell phone. And so that when the rider is entering your horse shows, when they're showing up to be a new boarder, when they're about to be your new lesson student, they can just sign that, and you're not pushing the paper, you're not dealing with the hassles of the waivers. Because if you have to deal with the hassle of the waivers, your show secretaries are dealing with incomplete entries. All that is just a time suck that is eating into your business profit and your business revenue. So best practices, get that waiver digital, post the link so anybody can access it on your website, and have a QR code, a quick response code, basically, posted at your entrance so that they can just scan it with their cell phone and it pulls up the waiver, or they can check into your show. It's right there. You don't have to get out of they don't have to get out of their truck to sign your waiver. They just scan it and go. The other two best practices, make sure you're using PDFs. If I had a nickel for every time I've seen a Word document of somebody's liability release post on Strider, the platform use went up 28% during COVID, and the number of Word documents for liability releases was through the roof. You can't post a legal document in Word. People can accidentally or intentionally change the language when they sign it. Don't post Word, post PDFs. 2 or 3 words missing from your waiver is the difference between whether or not your facility is protected in a lawsuit or you're not protected in a lawsuit. So you've got to make sure that it's a PDF and not a Word document. There's too much ambiguity and there's too much flexibility with a Word document. So keep it as a PDF. Ideally, keep it as a fillable PDF. Why? Because everyone's working from home during COVID. They don't have printers. They don't have the ability to, type in, type out, whatever. Fillable PDFs means that there's a field everywhere you want to collect the information. They can click in that field and type the information. And this is one that I know you're all going to have in your dreams and aspirations, have that spreadsheet. So your staff has to know what's going on. So you need a solution that allows you to be legally compliant, but all your staff knows, hey, everyone who's shown up for this USEF horse show, everyone signed a waiver. So when we looked at these solutions and we said, oh my God, okay, so how does the equestrian industry get digital paperwork? Answer was, there was nothing there for the horse industry. So you can sign a PDF from your iPhone or using Adobe PDF signature. You can sign your online entries, your liability releases, but the document has to be manually emailed to you, or you got to download it from the site. Only one person has access to the document. And what we found was that even the most tech savvy of riders had no clue how to sign a PDF document using their iPhone markup tool. So you were dead in the water. You weren't able to do that at mass scale. It wasn't scalable. It was 1 or 2 people could figure out how to do it, but out of 300 riders entering a jumper show, it was 1 or 2 people who knew how to do it. So it wasn't something, even with posted video instructions, people couldn't figure it out. You really needed a tech savvy client. So that's not scalable. So, all right, it's not scalable. We looked at all of the commercially available tools. DocuSign, HelloSign, PandaDocs. I mean, the list goes on. There's probably about 20 out there. The vast majority of them are set up for contract signing and one-time documents. So a non-disclosure agreement for an employee, real estate transaction, things like that. There is a limit on the amount of documents you're allowed to sign in most of the companies. DocuSign is probably the most robust. I love DocuSign. When we looked at putting it into the platform, it would have meant that every single one of you as an organizer would have been spending about $200 a month to get access to it. It just wasn't cost effective for the industry because you need the volume of signatures in a way that DocuSign can't support cost effectively. And it's a little difficult for some people to use. There's a little bit of a tutorial that some people need to have in order to know where they're supposed to click and what they're supposed to do. It's not necessarily the most intuitive. You do get an automatic receipt when you sign stuff, but it's expensive and it just wasn't scalable. So we developed our own system, came up with Starter EWaivers and launched it at Great Meadow International last year. Enabled it to support online entries, liability releases, enabled it to be sent out by a web link, email, social, text. But most importantly, that dynamic spreadsheet. So when you've got a bunch of riders showing up at a venue and they're showing up at your in-gate and you have no idea whether or not they've actually signed your waiver, the guy at the in-gate can't be calling back to the office every 5 seconds saying, did they sign, did they sign, did they sign? And you can't be running spreadsheets back and forth to the office every 5 seconds. So they needed a dynamic spreadsheet that auto-updated in real time when it worked. When we launched this at GMI, I actually felt a little bit like a crazy stalker because you could see the people when they were showing up at the gate because their names would show up in the spreadsheet. And I was like, oh, so-and-so just showed up. Oh, Paul just showed up. Oh, Mike just showed up, because their names, the minute they signed the waiver, would show up on the spreadsheet. It was a very gratifying thing to see how dynamically it can support a real-time operation. And it was very easy for people to sign. So if you've got a cell phone, you're signing the waiver, you're checking in. We've got a couple different plan levels. If you're looking to scale and move to digital waivers, we've got a lot more information about it. I'll show you the URL. But it's something to consider. Some people have some other solutions out there that are independently done with developers. If it works for you, it works for you. You just want to make sure you know what tools are out there and what's going to be best for your particular staff and your team. You can see over here, this is a QR code. So you scan that with your cell phone and you can touchless check in for the show rather than going up to the show secretary stand. You can automatically email them a digital packet after they've checked in. You can send them their sponsor offers, your vendor offers, retails, you know, subscriptions, whatever you need to do. So lots of options there. That's the URL for the EWaivers. Again, think about what you're doing and what digital tools you're bringing in to take the busy work, the paperwork, the labor-intensive processes, and make it easier. So the EWaivers was set up that the rider clicks, the information automatically populates the spreadsheet along with a copy of the completed waiver. And then if you're a show venue, that email contact goes right into your email marketing program so that all the stuff that Natasha talked about, engaging your customers and being able to reach back out to them and say, hey, we saw you just attended the jumper show on January 15th. Here's an offer from SmartPack, one of our show sponsors. Or we saw that you attended our show series last fall. We're launching our spring series now. The first early bird specials get 10% off their entries. Lots of different options, lots of different enablement, but it takes that whole process and makes it automated and seamless so that you can focus on running your business and not on all the labor-intensive stuff. Okay, switching back to Natasha, talking a little bit, we're going to bring this all together. We talked a little bit about the money, the marketing, the waivers. We're going to talk a little bit about paper versus online entries. We've had a lot of people say, well, so-and-so is going to be upset if we move off of paper. So I'll allow Natasha to talk a little bit about what we've been seeing and hearing around the industry.
Thank you, Tara. So yeah, we wanted to basically give you a very practical application for the tools that we just talked about, right? And one of those things that's very common in the industry is paper or show entries, which do not utilize any of the things that we just talked about. So to help you think about sort of transitioning and the ways that you can incorporate digital tools, we're going to walk you through a little bit of why online entries are so far superior to paper. a lot of what we have seen in the industry is that, you know, paper takes time. It takes time to process a check, and then, oh, someone's going to snail mail you their Coggins when it gets back from the vet. Then you have to attach that paper to the entry and all that stuff, right? The bottom line is that your time is your money. And if you are spending hours and hours tracking people down for checks, for missing pieces of paper, then it's not scalable for your business. You can't grow that way, right? So it doesn't matter if you're accepting entries for a 200 entry horse show or for, you know, cross country schooling at a much smaller volume. Online entries are the way to go. Um, Checks take a long time to process. They delay revenue, right? Tara pointed that out. It is a tremendous waste of time for people to have to chase down other people for signatures and for paper, right? And not only that, when you have an online entry system in place, whatever that system is, right? There are a ton of online entry options. We are speaking about Strider because we created it, we love it, and we want to share it with the world. But we know that there are others in the space. We welcome them. They're great. They have their needs. If one of those suits your business, go ahead and use it, right? But the thing about incorporating one of those online entry platforms is that it's going to increase the number of complete entries. That saves you time, that saves the rider time. Everybody has a better experience. They're going to come back, right? So basically, going digital is scalable, it's easy to grow, it's easy to replicate, and it's going to increase your profit margins. It also will reduce those contact points, which everybody is very, very concerned about now with COVID, right? So we can move on to our next little slide here. What you want to do, and again, we're just tying everything together that we've talked about tonight. So if you have a digital or an online entry option in place, use email to market it. Back that email invitation up with social media. Use reminders, right? Let people find you organically through the work that you've done to incorporate tools that boost your SEO. So post about it on your website, host a link to your online entry on your website. And if you use a platform like Strider, we've got SEO built in. So that's going to help increase that your organic Google search results or whatever, Bing, Ask Jeeves, whatever platform that people are using to search. I only use Google, so I'm only going to talk about Google. And a couple of other things, just basic housekeeping, right? Be really, really clear with what you expect people to give you that constitutes a clear or a complete entry. So this is, again, what I was saying before, where you want to be transparent. You want to post your price list. You want to tell people what to expect when they get to your farm. Same thing if you are accepting online entries for something. Say to people, hey, we're not going to schedule you unless we already have your payment, your Coggins, and your signed waiver on file. That's okay. Your time is money. It takes you time to track all those things down so you can be upfront with people. It's not going to turn them away because you've clearly communicated the expectation, right? So again, you want to keep people on your jump shoot path. You want to collect online payments, get those digital signatures, and charge a fee if people are a little by the wayside with your requirements. So again, online entries are just a way to streamline everything that we've talked about. You can go completely from start to finish through that jump shoot. You invite people to enter, you let them find you organically. You are very, very clear with the expectation. You're very transparent about what the experience will be. Give them an easy way to commit and pay, and then give them an easy way to complete the things that you've asked for. So use a platform that allows people to upload documents, and use a platform that enables online payment and digital signature collection. This is just a lovely screenshot of our organizer's corner, which allows you to quickly navigate what you've received from people, right? So again, here you have some lovely funds collected numbers. That's the idea. You take the time to invest in these tools that work for your business, do the research as to what's going to work best for your business, And then you implement them and you can get your time back and you can make more money. Because then you can spend it on vet bills and things because, you know, horses. So a lot of questions that we hear from people are, you know, if I switch to digital, my customers are going to leave. My customers are not going to be happy. We are not saying that you should drive your customers away, but you can be really, really clear with your communication. You can give people advance notice. If they need special accommodations and they have been with you for 35 years and you do not want to let them go, give them a special accommodation. But streamline everybody else, right? Emphasize to people that you're making this more convenient for them. Don't just say that it's more convenient for you, right? That's just a little bit of a marketing tidbit. Why do we all have these cell phones? Because they make our lives more convenient, not because they made Apple a ton of money. And again, charge a processing fee. Get comfortable with charging for your services, right? That's going to make your clients comfortable paying for them. Your time is yours and it is your money and it's important. You wouldn't do a lovely 2-hour body clip on a horse and not charge for it, right? I think it's the same thing with processing check payments. Yeah, and everyone will be happy after that. So with that, we can move on to questions. And I did see a few come in here to the chat. So I will share those and Tara and I can answer them. And again, if you have any questions, just go ahead and chat them to me and we will answer them. Our first one that came through, I jotted it down, Tara, while you were talking, was what is required to get set up with the EWaivers?
Oh, great question. So basically you go to the link that's in the presentation and you pick the plan that you want. There's 3 different levels of plans. One is a basic plan that's really good for boarding operations because you only have a couple waivers you need each month. The other one's great for lessons because you have a little bit more volume. And then the third one is really curated for the show venues because we know that you're going to be processing a large volume. You need to get them over to the spreadsheet. And then ideally you want to get them from the spreadsheet over to your email marketing. And most of the bigger show venues have that email marketing and they're sending out constant contact. They're already set up with MailChimp. So that's set up there. Anyway, you choose the level you want and you send us your waiver language and our team is going to digitize the waiver language, send it back to you for approval. You're going to have a link to your posted waiver online. You can see GMI's waiver as an example. And you're going to receive a QR code, which is something that you can print out and put at the entrance to your facility, wherever you want to put it, on your tack room wall, wherever you find people tend to show up and say, hey, I need to sign your waiver. Rather than having the working students run over to the desk and get a paper waiver, they're just going to click, scan it, and sign. And then as the waivers are signed, you're going to get an email notification every time they get signed. And if you're on the top 2 levels, you'll have it automatically over to your spreadsheet. So it's pretty straightforward. It's send us your waiver language and we do the rest. And then you just sit back and watch the signed signatures come through.
No apps, no downloading. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
So the next one, and Tara, we can kind of split this question. It's a good one. Do I need my own website? So I will start this one off. I will say, yes, you need your own website, but you need a lot of other things first, right? So you can get away with, and I'll say it like that, because you can get away with having a business Facebook page for a little while, as long as you've got an email list, an option for online payments. You have to have all of these other tools in place as they all work together, right? Tara, is there anything that you want to add?
Yeah, I think that's fair. You can get away with not having a website. You have to have certain elements in place. You've got to have a way to communicate with your customers, and it's got to be a way that doesn't take you 7 hours a day. You've got to have a way to process their payments, and it's got to be a way that works and that you're going to quickly lift and shift the minute you start making more money. The goal of a website is to make you more money and to give you more presence, but once you make that presence, you have to have the other tools in place. So it's a little bit of the chicken and the egg. Start with making sure you have the basics. Make sure you're legally compliant, financially ready to start operating a business and scaling up the business, make sure you've got a plan to reach out to people and that you know what you're offering and what the cost is. The website's kind of the icing on the cake. You can get away with Facebook for a short period.
Yep, absolutely. One question came through about PayPal. So this person basically said, in the past, I've been charged merchant fees by PayPal. Is that avoidable for a business?
Yes, Strider Pay, that's what we negotiated with PayPal. So we negotiated with PayPal an entire industry, access to the entire industry, and said, the only way you can do this is if we don't have to charge them that merchant fee. So PayPal collects the merchant fee themselves directly from the rider with Strider Pay. So then if you charge $125 for a horse show entry on Strider, you get $125 in full deposited into your bank account. And that's the only way I know in the industry that you can legally avoid that merchant processing fee.
Well, Strider's the way to go.
Yep. It was a pretty wonderful negotiation with PayPal, so I'm thrilled they agreed to it.
Okay, well, with that, that's all the questions that came through. If there's anything else and you have questions that come up after you receive the recording email or anything like that, please email us at support@striderpro.com. And our lovely support team will forward the questions to Tara and myself. We're happy to answer anything or help get you started, direct you in the right path for whatever you may need.
Yeah, if you have any questions about either the financial stuff or the legal stuff, we've got a lot of industry resources that are happy to talk to you in more depth about it. So just give us a shout. We're happy to explain further.